Hi everyone, this is Long Vo. Today is June the 24th, 2012. I would like to analyze a game that I played on chess.com. I'm playing white and my rating is 1380, and my opponent is playing black and rated 1153. So this game is a little bit special for me because I was teaching my son how to play. He's only 6 years old, uh, and he was clicking the whole time, and I was just telling him where to go and explaining my line of thoughts. For example, if I move this pawn is to open the diagonal, or if I capture this pawn would be to open the file for the rooks, etc. So let's begin. And I play e4. Um, my opponent plays e5, and I told my son, okay, let's do the King's Gambit. So we played f4. So he loves the King's Gambit. So my opponent delivers check right away with Queen to h4 check, and we had the choice to either move the king. But then we thought that if we didn't castle, it would be maybe bad for us. So I think the queen here is out a little prematurely. So we decided to defend with g3, attacking the queen. So he retreats to f6, maintaining pressure on the f pawn. And I was really trying to teach my son the importance of development. So that's the theme of this game. So the next move is knight to f3, knowing that the f pawn is hanging, because if he takes and then we retake, and then the queen takes, and then we're down a pawn, and this whole area here is really open, and now for us to castle on the queen side, we would have to develop all of these pieces first. So we knew that that was possible, but nevertheless we thought that development was important, and that's what I was trying to teach him, that being down in material wasn't as bad as long as we had good development. Okay, so then he takes e takes f, and instead of retaking, so we knew we were down a pawn already, right? So there was no point in retaking, and then the queen would simply take. So we decided to continue our development. So bishop to c4. So now I was telling my son that now we have two minor pieces developed, whereas he has the queen developed only, and we weren't worried that he could take, because that, well, which he did. So he goes f takes g, and then obviously now it's the g pawn is awfully close to being promoted. So then we had to take, but in taking here we so h takes g, we open up the h file for our rook. So to me that's considered a development move. And at this point, if you count development, he's only got the queen developed, whereas we have two minor pieces and one major piece developed. So we're up in development and down one pawn. So my opponent goes h6. So I thought that this was a weak move, and I was telling my son that in the beginning you want to avoid making too many pawn moves, because those don't really contribute to your development. So this move here is actually taking a square away from the knight. The queen is taking the other spot, and here if the knight goes here, he's simply blocking off his dark squared bishop. So I was glad my opponent played that way because it just illustrates the importance of development. So now we go d4. Even though it is a pawn move, we are opening up the diagonal for the dark squared bishop, and we are gaining space in the center. So now queen goes to g6. This is a double attack against our g-pawn and our e-pawn. So now it's another situation where we're going to be down another pawn. And I told my son, don't worry about it because it's about development. So at this point, he still only has one piece developed, whereas we're up in development with two pieces and a major piece as well. So we continue development. I decided to only defend one pawn. So bishop to f4, defending the g pawn, also threatening the c pawn. So this pawn is hanging, and he could have delivered check here, and I would probably simply defend with the queen. And if he exchanges, then we would recapture, and then we would be up in development with 3 pieces and 1 major piece versus 0. So let's just play that. So if he takes check, then we could block with the queen, and he has no choice but to exchange at this point because his queen is pinned to the king. He does have the choice to retreat. And then we wouldn't really be taking because it would be wasting a development move. So if we exchange here, then he gets to develop his bishop. And if you count right now, we have 3 minor pieces and 1 major piece versus 1 minor piece. But if he retreats here and we just develop another piece, such as the knight here, now we're 4 minor pieces, 2 major pieces versus 1 major piece, and that's a huge lead in development, right? Anyways, that's not what happened, and if actually he exchanges queens, then we recapture with the bishop, and we're up in development 3 minor pieces, 1 major piece versus no development from his side. So he didn't take the e-pawn. So he went another pawn move, defending the c-pawn. So he went d6. So at this point, I was really happy with his moves because now I get to develop another piece, right? So now I decided to defend the e-pawn with knight to c3. So now it's 4 minor pieces and 1 major piece versus 1 major piece. So that's a huge lead in development. And I told my son that the next step is really to develop the queen, and perhaps on this square, x-raying the king is a good square, and that will open up the first rank for the king to castle queenside, connecting the rook and finishing our development, whereas he's really far from finishing his development. So he goes bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen. So at least he's developing now, and that's good for him. But at this stage, it's pretty late. So we continue our development. So at this point, we could have moved the queen to d2, but instead we chose e2, trying to x-ray the king here, because I think that way it opens up tactics. So if we advance a pawn later on and there's some exchanges going on, we can open that e file, attacking the king. And really, at this stage, we have so many pieces that can attack. And the goal right now is really to prevent the king from castling. So he continues development, which is good for him, and he goes knight to c6, opening up the 8th rank here for queenside castling, and also threatening our d pawn. And at this point, if he takes, we cannot take back with our knight because it's pinned to the queen. So we decided to castle queenside and developing the rook to defend the d pawn. So that works out for us. And okay, so he decides to castle now. So good for him. He's continuing to develop, and now, unfortunately, his this d6 move here is blocking off the bishop, right? And so he's still far from finishing his development. So now we go queen to e3 with the idea of x-raying the a7 pawn with the queen. And our next move was really to advance the pawn here and opening up the diagonal for the queen and threatening the knight. And obviously the knight is protecting that a7 pawn. So if we move d5, kicking the knight away, and at the same time opening the diagonal for the queen to attack the king. And also we're getting our queen out of the pin. Okay, so afterwards our knight is free to move. It is still pinned to a rook right now, but it's better than the queen. So my opponent goes knight to f6, developing his knight. So he's one move away from completing his development. It is, however, too late at this point, and well, it's never too late, right? Anything can happen, but I think that we have a huge lead in development, and this is the time to strike. And because we finish our development, there's nothing else that we can really do to improve our pieces, right? So now it's time to attack. So d5, threatening the knight, and opening up the diagonal for the queen. And my opponent goes bishop takes f3. So I guess that's a okay move, but we don't want our queen to be distracted at this point, because I feel that we have enough minor pieces threatening the king here, so that there's no need to really worry about material gain right now, or equalizing in material. So we decided to exchange with d takes c6. So I think that knight is more useful to him, because it's defending here the a7 pawn, than this bishop. Okay, and so my son didn't quite understand why we're doing that, but I was trying to illustrate the importance of initiative, and right now his king is really under attack. So this pawn here is very, very powerful, and it's blocking off one of the key squares for the king to escape. And also, if he does take, we don't mind, because then we're opening other files for the queen to come in, perhaps use our rooks eventually, and even here bring the rooks in. So even now we knew that one of our rooks would be hanging, and that was okay. So he decided to take bishop takes h1, and that was fine with us. Now his bishop is still under attack, right? So you'll notice that he's not too experienced, so he's really worried about material gain at this point. So we go queen takes a7. So obviously, if he moves or if he tries to free up space for his king, then we could always capture. So right now he's in really big trouble because the next move we are threatening checkmate. So I had the feeling that he would have to take our pawn. So b takes c, and that was okay because now the bishop is able to attack the king, but as you can see, the pawn is no longer taking away this key square right here. So my next idea was to somehow block off this this key square here, this escape route for the king, and then delivering the checkmate here. So we knew that playing knight to a4 would be a very powerful move, because our next step is to deliver check, covering this key square, and if the pawn takes, we're still covering that key square by opening the 7th rank for the queen. So this is so our next move will be a crucial one, and I don't know if he sees it yet, but he's still worried about his bishop hanging here. So he goes bishop takes e4, and basically this is game over. The next moves are what we call tempo moves. They're basically moves that force your opponent to play a certain way. So knight to b6 check, and there's no other move besides the king can't escape here because the knight is covering that square. He can't go here because the queen. So the only move that remains is c takes b6, and now the queen is covering this key escape square. And the finishing move, bishop to a6, checkmate. So if you count the in terms of points, he's leading by he's leading by a rook and a minor piece. So that's a huge development, and a couple of pawns and 2 pawns as well. So that's a huge material lead, but that's all irrelevant because the game is over and we won. So this game illustrates the importance of development. So thank you for watching, and I hope everybody learned something from it, and especially the beginners, that development sometimes is way more important than material gain.